So I just read over your consultation form here, and you had moved to Chicago, and there was some anxiety because of the busy city.
Right.
And then you had a negative experience with the dog, which then ultimately led to leash reactivity, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And
And
then
we just
now,
haven't really quite recovered from that.
gotcha. And then now, because of the quarantine and stuff, you're going back to work, and now there's like separation anxiety.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. So go ahead and fill me in on just like any bits and pieces that you think I should know about Taco here.
I mean, he, for the most part, is like a generally good dog. It's just lately it's been around other dogs that he's just been really aggressive. So I don't know. I mean, even when we were in California, this was never really an issue for him. Like I would take him to the dog parks and he'd be fine and could be off leash and it wouldn't be of concern to me. But now we're getting to the point where, winter's coming back again. He's pulling a lot more and, I don't want to fall on this like ice. I don't want him to fall on the ice. So
Sure.
just like trying to take some precautions if we can, to hopefully get this under control a little sooner.
And how long have you had him for?
It'll be 4 months in a couple weeks, or 4 years in a couple weeks.
Okay, so you've had him since he was a pup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so literally no issues until that, the move and then the incident.
Right.
Gotcha. And what do you walk him on currently? Harness, flat collar, prong?
A prong or a harness, depending on like how long of a walk we'll go on.
Okay. And do you notice a difference in behavior with either of those?
Not really.
No? Okay.
Yeah. If anything, the harness, sometimes if I use it for shorter walks, he pulls more.
Yeah.
I usually use it if we're going for longer because he's tired, so he won't pull quite as much.
Is it a back clip or a front clip?
A back clip.
Gotcha. And then the prong collar, was that something you just got, or did somebody advise you to get it?
So someone, like one of my friends had advised, like maybe he'll be a little more responsive, but I didn't necessarily get like training on it.
Okay. So it's kind of like you put it on them and then you just walk, but there's nothing really being done formally to like.
Right. So like if anything, if he starts barking at another dog, I'll pull on it and we'll sit or like pull off to the side if there's no way for us to like avoid the dog.
When you pull on it to like remove him, does he de-escalate or does he just keep barking?
It depends on like how close I guess the dog already is. Because sometimes he'll just sit and stop, but other times if the he's like already locked in on it, he'll just keep barking at them.
Gotcha. The separation anxiety, how long has that been going on for?
So that I feel like is new with COVID. Like I don't think he had that before. I used to be able to like leave him a treat and then walk out the door and not hear him. And now like he won't even acknowledge the treats. I can hear him crying when I'm like outside. So I would say that's like fairly recent.
Okay. And I think I read that your neighbors have complained or like no whining and barking. How long when did you move to Chicago?
Almost 2 years ago.
Okay, so then he was fine, and then COVID hit, and now going back to work, it wasn't like you just moved and then all this happened.
Mm-mm.
Gotcha. Have you tried anything to address that?
The barking?
The separation anxiety, yeah.
I mean, I don't really know what else to do for the separation anxiety because I still have to go to work. So,
right.
I mean, days that we have, like I have a walker 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So to try and help break up his day. But I mean, I'm an essential employee, so I still had to go to work like 5 days a week.
Oh, okay. So even though there was quarantine, you were still leaving.
So we had like a month where we did remote work. Mm-hmm. And so I was home for maybe 2 weeks and then they stopped that for us. They told us we had to come back. So
okay.
It was really only like a 2-week period that I was home for like consecutive days.
Correct.
And then after that I had to go.
Okay. And then after those 2 weeks is when you noticed the change in his behavior?
Yeah, I mean, he might have been doing it before that, but my neighbors weren't home, so I never heard about that. So I think because everybody was home, like they were just working from home and complaining about it now. So I think the difference before was like we all were leaving essentially at the same time.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Anything else about Taco?
No, he's a great dog.
Okay. When I saw Taco, I was expecting a Chihuahua.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
Like I've had a couple of tacos come through, like, requests and stuff, and it's always been a Chihuahua.
Oh
So,
no, he's a little bigger. I mean, he loves men. He doesn't really. He's like impartial to women. So
and how big is he? How much does he weigh?
he's 26 pounds.
Okay, so he's not that big. Yeah, the fur, because when I saw him right here, he looked like a 40 to 50 pound dog, but the fur just kind of makes him a little bit more dense.
Yeah, he needs a haircut, but that's, his COVID look.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else about Taco?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Before reaching out, I'm assuming you did some research on us or read up on us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we train with e-collar and prong collar.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you familiar with an e-collar at all?
I'm not.
Okay. Have you ever been to a physical therapist or a chiropractor?
I work with physical therapists. So is that like their electrostimulants kind of
Yes.
thing? Yeah. Okay.
The stim, the TENS unit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an e-collar.
Okay.
Okay, because people, when they think of e-collar, they usually think like a taser, or they think like electrocution, or like sticking your finger in an outlet. That's not the case at all. It's just a muscle contraction, so there's a slight current, but it's only between where those two probes are making contact.
Right.
So much like the machines that they put the pads, and then it just moves that muscle for whatever it's contacting. Yeah, it's the same technology. Okay. So that makes things a lot easier then, because you already understand it.
Yeah.
It's usually the whole part of the process is I'm like explaining what an e-collar is, because people usually think like, oh my God, it's gonna be this terrible thing.
Oh,
So,
no. I mean, like, I know that they, like, a lot of people end up using it for training purposes. So, I mean, they're using it for a reason.
right. And I'll explain all that stuff, as we go along. But at least with the what it is part of it, that makes things easier. And much like they apply it to humans, they start low and they work their way up until the person goes, that's too much. And then they go back down, and then they let the machine like do its work, right?
Right.
It's very similar with dog training, except with humans, because the machine is, stimulating the muscle for, whatever period of time they need it for, it's continuous. Whereas for ours, it's only when we're actively pressing the button, and we're only actively pressing the button when we're trying to teach something. Okay. So once the dog is conditioned, they relate. If, when I hear this word, this happens. So to avoid the stimulus or the stim, they just perform the behavior. Okay. So in training, there's what they call the 4 quadrants, positive reinforcement, positive punishment, negative reinforcement, and negative punishment. And all it means is adding and subtracting good and bad things. Okay. So positive reinforcement is adding something good. Positive punishment is adding something bad, something the dog doesn't like. And then negative reinforcement is removing something bad to make it a positive. And then negative punishment is removing something good. Okay. So in my opinion, the best form of training, it sounds worse because they're using the terms positive punishment, but every case is different. Every dog is different. And my collar goes to 127. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with like the levels of a TENS unit, like how high they go, not numerically, or is it? No. So like, let's say, so on cheaper model or e-collars, they'll go to like 10. So mine goes to 127, and people usually think 117 more, when really it's the same cap, but I have 117 more divisions. Okay. So the power is the same, but I just have a much more greater nuance between the levels.
Control on that,
exactly. So when we're adding something, and I was actually talking with a client earlier where they're like, you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. Right. So the negative experiences actually teach you more. So it's the same thing with training. One, nobody likes being uncomfortable. Nobody likes discomfort. Like everybody, if you find yourself in a situation where you're uncomfortable, you want to remove yourself from it, right?
Right.
Or get it to stop. So that's one why it makes it effective. But then also, dogs are physical animals, and the way
Mm-hmm.
they communicate is through physicality, which is nipping and biting, right? So like for Taco, he had that negative experience with that dog, which has then created distrust essentially. That's why he's being reactive.
Right.
Um, and not to say that he will, but as an example, let's say a dog actually came up to him while he was being reactive, you
Mm-hmm.
might see Taco nip or bite at that dog.
Right.
And he's saying, hey, back off, I've had a bad experience. I don't trust you. Get away from me, right? So that physicality isn't because he's aggressive. The
Right.
physicality is because he's saying, hey, you're coming into my personal space and I'm on a leash, so I have no means of escape. You need to back away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's like with humans, if someone's, when like, let's say someone were to kill someone, they look at the situation, and if it's like deemed in self-defense, then that person is not charged with murder.
Right.
That's because it's self-defense. So that person is not a murderer. That person was just protecting their life, and they had to use, fatal means to do so. So dogs is very similar. When they're becoming or displaying aggressive responses, I assess what's going on.
Okay.
And then from there, I go, the dog's not aggressive, the dog's fear aggressive, the dog's nervous aggressive, leash aggressive. Like there's reasons behind it.
Right.
Um, because an aggressive dog, in my opinion, uh, uses aggression for a multitude of things and
Mm-hmm.
goes to aggression really quick.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like their first resort. Whereas most dogs, you have to do things and put them in certain contexts where they're like, okay, now I feel like I need to use aggression to remove you from the situation. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So um, that fact that the physicality factor is really what makes e-collar so effective, and prong collar as well. But with prong collar, some issues are one, it takes a bit of technical skill because you have to use the leash to if you pull on it, it creates this kind of biting motion.
Mm-hmm.
And people typically don't know how to do that correctly, or
Right.
they feel bad doing the
Doing it.
yanking.
Yeah.
They don't do it to the extent needed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The other factor is, um, if the dog is being reactive and they're adrenalized, it's kind of like getting in a fight where the person gets punched and they don't feel anything, but then after the fight, they feel like, oh my God, my jaw hurts, right?
Yeah.
So for the dog, it's very similar. He's adrenalized, he's reactive, he's emotional. You add in that physical, but he's so intense that
Yeah.
he doesn't feel the prong collar. He just blows it off.
Right.
Okay. So if you can't match his intensity, then you may have an issue there. Okay. So with e-collar, I don't have that problem
Right. Okay.
because as long as we have the appropriate power for the dog's size and temperament, I can override the aggression or the
Mm-hmm.
aggressive response if needed. Okay. Now, in your case, I wouldn't come in and say, well, I think you're interested in the board and train, correct?
Yeah.
Is so for the board and train, he wouldn't come here and we wouldn't just take him outside looking for dogs and just punish him for it. What we would do, which is essentially what I would do with you if you had done in person, which is that's the first thing that people think about is like, oh, you're gonna just punish the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, in some cases, yes, like it's an approach, but it's not the first approach. Okay. So the first thing I do is I know his issue is distrust because what you just experienced with him is very common. So it's funny because dogs don't generalize unless it's like a negative experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like if you teach a dog to sit in your home, it doesn't necessarily mean sit at PetSmart.
Right.
You have to train sit at PetSmart and then sit transfers there. They
Mm-hmm.
don't generalize sit means sit no matter where I'm at. But behaviorally, if a dog, I've had this happen, and it happens typically around 6 months and a year in most cases, is the owner will take their dog to like the dog park. and a dog will like, attack them or correct them or overcorrect them, whatever. So there's that negative experience. And then everybody overreacts, right? Pulls the dogs away and all that stuff. And then the next day, it's like a light switch. The dog's just now leash reactive.
Yeah.
Dog aggressive. Now it's just going, I don't trust any dogs. Okay. So in your case, it happened later on in life. And it could have been, had you ever had an experience like that before, or was that like the first time?
No, that was the first time.
Okay. And you said ever since moving to Chicago, he's been a little bit more edgier, or did he get better with that over time?
No, so I mean, we were initially, when I first moved here, we were in South Loop. So it's just a little bit busier than where we're at currently, which is in Lakeview. So it's a little quieter. Yeah. We were like right above a train. Like it was a lot of noise for him. And we had come from a suburb in California. So that was just like a lot of stimulation for him. And so I did try and normalize that for him as far as like going to a park, and like he loved going to dog parks in California and like was great with other dogs. And then we just went to one, and this like Doberman came and like got him one time, and like that was like the last that we were able to go to a dog park, because I tried a couple times after that, and every dog he was just so scared of.
Gotcha. When that happened, was it like an actual bite, or was it just like a big scuffle and it looked bad?
I think it was probably like a big scuffle, but he was like really shook up about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could be a couple of things. It could just be the experience itself, or it could be the fact that he was already like kind of on edge, with just moving to Chicago.
Yeah.
Like my dogs, they're from Texas, and a small town in Texas, which is like a 15-minute drive across the town.
Right.
Okay. And, they spent the first, year of their life there. I got them as puppies. And then I came back to Chicago, and I moved to South Loop with my stepdad, and my pit bull didn't poop for 3 days.
Yeah.
Because she was so stressed out. And then finally one day, she could only hold it for so long.
Yeah.
3 days of poop came out.
Yeah.
So, and now they're fine, like they've acclimated and everything. But it could be any one of those things, or just how the situation was handled. Either way, it is what it is. So the reactivity part is the easy part. Okay. Because it's simply don't be reactive. Okay. So what we would do is with obedience. So we have behavior and obedience, and I want you to think of behavior as morality. Don't jump, don't bark, don't bite. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. And obedience is education. Sit, stay, come. Math, English, science. Okay. So being a smart person doesn't make for a good person.
Right.
Okay? And you can have someone who's not very intelligent, but be a very good person. Right. It's the same thing for dogs. So, I've gotten dogs that know like 100 commands and do all these fancy tricks, but are jerks.
Yeah.
And I go, and they're like, the owner's like, why the dog's so smart? And I'm like, because it's not about being smart. It's about being, in the human terms, morally sound, right? Now, dogs don't have morals,
right?
But they do have what they allow and what they don't allow, or they learn what you allow and what you don't allow. Okay. So the easy part is getting the reactivity to stop. Okay. The difficult part would be rebuilding trust, if that was something that you're looking to do. Now, rebuilding trust with dogs doesn't help reactivity. Okay. Because that's a real common thing. People think, oh, my dog needs to socialize, so he stops, lunging and barking on the leash. Because sometimes the lunging and barking on the leash is for the fact of the dog wants to meet the dog, is just throwing a tantrum like a kid. Okay. In some cases, they're being reactive because they're like, they're legitimately aggressive and are throwing out threat. In other cases, it's, hey, I had a really bad experience and I don't want to be hurt again. So I'm going to act like I'm tough to keep everybody scared and like keep them at bay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the way this would work, so I'll talk about the reactivity and I'll talk about the separation anxiety, is the first thing we do is teach the dog how to walk correctly on a leash. Okay. There's two factors here. One factor is the focus factor, which is he's being mindful of you. And we make it so the dog is more concerned about the handler, whoever's walking Taco, than he is over the environment. Okay. So we're overriding the fear of one thing for the fear of another thing. Okay. And I don't want you to think fear as in scared. I'm just using it to make things simpler. What we teach, it's not so much being scared, like, oh my God, like I'm going to be hurt. It's more so thinking, all right, what's going to be worse? This dog walking past me and me thinking something bad's going to happen, or me leaving mom's leg to lunge and bark and then a negative thing happens that's physical and that I feel. Okay. So the way I explain that is, if somebody were to ask you, are you scared more of a ghost or are you scared of a serial killer?
Right.
Right? One is real, one is not. So I look at it that way for the dog. The other dog walking is like it's the thought of a threat. It's the ghost. And then the physicality is concrete. He feels that. So that would be something that's real. Okay. So then obviously we're looking to override this with this. So then what happens is, once this happens and nothing happens here, but nothing happens here, then he'll, oh, I don't have to freak out.
Yeah.
So the physicality is more so to get him back to reality, not so much to instill fear in him that he's like, oh my God, I'm scared of everything.
To kind of like reset him a little bit.
Correct. So, you know, growing up, I was spanked. I was raised old school, and I'm appreciative of it. Like, I'm very disciplined because of it. And the intention was not to hurt me, but to teach a lesson.
Right.
Okay. So dogs, you know, and mother dogs and, you know, old adult dogs will do this to puppies as young as 3 to 4 weeks. When they start disagreeing with stuff, they just bite them.
Yeah.
Right. They use physicality, and the puppy will be yipping and yelping and running away and stuff. And they're like, whatever, get over it. Okay. But when humans try to discipline their dogs, it's different because they feel bad. You know, they think they're hurting their dog. And then the whole concept of abuse and like all these things. Right.
Right.
But if he's not doing anything and he's behaving himself, then we're not doing anything. Right. It's just common sense, logical. So then we start to build trust. It's more so his trust in the handler and what he's expected to do that helps him override and just trust like nothing's going to happen here. Okay. Now, tricky part would be what happens when another reactive dog walks by. Right. And then he's like, yo, like this dog is lunging and barking at me, very much like that Doberman, that energy. Right. Then you might see something boil. You can still disagree with it though. Okay. But then the other component is teaching you how do you handle those situations, because that's not about obedience. That's just about life.
Right.
Okay. So, you know, we cover that as well. When I follow up with my clients, like I've done this for a really long time. I specialize in behavior. Is I know all the things, or at least 99% of the things that people are going to struggle with.
Yeah.
You know, when I have clients in elevator buildings, you know, getting on I had one lady that used to go up 20 something flights of stairs 3 times a day to avoid dogs in the elevator. Okay. Because she was so anxious of like, I'm going to see a dog and it's going to be bad. She'll just take the stairs. Okay. And she'd go like at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like it was bad. And then I go, yeah, you know, we'll get you back to normal life, which we did. We stopped the reactivity. She was able to take the elevator. She didn't have to go up and down 20 something flights of stairs. Good exercise, but
been in great shape.
Yeah, I know. So I know the things like turning around the corner and there's going to be a dog, right?
Yeah.
Walking by a house and there's a dog behind the fence. Like those things are real life things that obedience doesn't really fix, because it's about a scenario where you're either caught off guard or the dog's lunging at Taco. So then that dog's putting out threats. So then Taco feels like he's going to self-defense mode. Okay. So that's that. They go hand in hand, you know, obedience, Taco having a structure of what he's expected to do and being cued to do so. But then for you, it's how do you recover when life throws you something that you weren't ready for, and you use the tools that you have. Okay. So with the reactivity, once we get them trusting, like, okay, cool, I feel safe with mom. I don't have to act out this way. We don't get reactivity. Okay. Doesn't mean you'll never see it. Okay. You might go 6 months and then get a reactive moment, but it's like, it's been 6 months and you can stop it very easily. Then I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because again, we don't know what the context may be. It could be you turn the corner, there's a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you had a reactive moment. But otherwise, every other time you see dogs, he's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing we would do here is teach him how to walk correctly. Chances are we're not going to see reactivity. Okay, right off the bat. Just let you know that right now. Okay.
But like, why is?
Because we know what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
I'm
Yeah.
like, why? Like, I know that it can't necessarily just be with like strangers that he does better, because even the dog walker sometimes will say like, oh, we've had a rough walk. Like, he was really sassy with some of the dogs when we walked by them. So,
Right.
yeah.
Part of the problem is also your harness.
Oh, okay.
So earlier when I asked, what do you walk them on? Harnesses promote pulling, as you've experienced,
Mm-hmm.
but harnesses also create agitation, which feeds into reactivity.
Okay.
Okay, so when dogs have this thing called opposition reflex of when they feel pressure, they go against pressure. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so when you're pulling on him and he's pulling forward, that's like pissing him off, if you will. Okay, so then when he sees a dog, he's already agitated, and then it goes to the next level.
Okay.
Okay? It's super common. So I've had people walk their dogs on harnesses since they were puppies, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
common with like pit bulls and bull type or bully type breeds.
Mm-hmm.
Is they're like, my puppy was super friendly when they were a puppy, got them at 2 months, and then over the course of time they became more and more aggressive. And I'll ask them, did you walk them in a harness? And they'll say, yeah. I'm like, that's why. Because for the first year of their life, as that puppy's maturing, they're going through developmental stages. And you're every day, every time they see a dog, you pull back because you don't want your puppy to annoy the dog. But for the puppy, it's creating agitation and distress, because then the puppy thinks, every time I see a dog, this negative tension kicks in, and it doesn't go away till the dog disappears. But also, friendly puppies become frustrated puppies because then they can't get to the
Yeah.
to the dog to
Okay.
say hi, and then we repeat that hundreds of times over the course of a year. Then it goes from friendly puppy to frustrated puppy to agitated dog to aggressive dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's super common. Not that it can't be reversed, but I
Okay.
hear stuff like that all the time. Okay, so that, and coupled with how we know how to use our leashes and tools and stuff like that, is like, you could give me Taco and I could walk him within like 3 minutes and he would look like he's trained. Okay, because we know how to use our tools.
Okay.
And right off the bat, the dog goes, you know my language. You're giving me instant discipline. Like, I'm already disagreeing with, I'm going, you're not going to pull me, you're not going to do that, you're not going to do this, right off
Yeah.
the bat. So then he goes, oh, you're giving me rules, so you're an authority. So if I'm the authority, that takes off the pressure of what I got to do, what I do when I feel threat, because that's the authority's problem, right? So if we have a parent and a child, we would expect the parent to protect the child in the case of of some kind of threat, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't expect the child to step in to protect the parent. So it's the same thing for the dogs. I know some people get dogs for protection, but I'll tell people, like, well, one, there's the personality type of the dog, and then two, I get people to get Rottweilers and they'll think like, yeah, I got this dog to protect me, and I'm like, your Rottweiler is a chicken. That dog is not going to protect you. I'm like, just because it's a Rottie doesn't mean they'll actively protect you. However, because they're Rottie, it'll probably scare off most people. So it doesn't mean that we can't address his reactivity. Okay, it just means I'm pretty confident we're not going to see it, because that happens quite a bit with these kinds of reactivity cases. Because it's not a real reactivity thing. For me, it's false, because it's coming from an insecure place. He doesn't want to do that. He's doing it because he feels he needs to keep himself safe. Okay, so what we would end up doing is just do all the formal obedience like we would for any other case. If we see it, then we would address it.
Sure.
But essentially, once we transfer him to you, then it's me teaching you what he's learned, but then teaching you like, hey, you know, we didn't see reactivity. You may, because he's back with you now. That's that association, but this is how you're going to address it.
Okay.
Okay. And it may be tricky because since you've not seen it be addressed, you kind of have to put two and two together. But I have videos, because we've been recording everything, of reactive cases that we've worked with in person. And I would say, like, watch this video to give you an idea, you know, because I'll explain it to you, but then you need to like see it. And this week, oh, okay, this is what he was telling me to do. And now you have a visual so that when you're out, ideally you don't see reactivity, but should it crop up, you're like, it's okay, I know what to do. Jesse told me, plus I've seen what it looks like. Okay. What we also been doing here at the facility is we record the first session. If let's say the dog's doing a single week, we record the first session of every new behavior we teach. So heel, sit, stay down, come, place, 6 commands. So that you see the learning process, so that you understand how it's taught, because that's super important. Okay. If he stays longer, which for behavioral cases, we usually recommend about 2 weeks at minimum, is in the next week. So the first week is the first session of everything. Then you get like a video that I just put it all together and I send it to you. Here you go. And then you get follow-up classes. And then for the next week, we do an overview. Okay. So it's like, okay, your dog, this was what they were looking like when they learned, and this is what they're at now after 2 weeks of work. Okay. So then if like we have a client here that's doing 4 weeks with us. So she got the initial sessions, and then she got a video at 2 weeks, and then she's going to get one at 3 weeks, and then she's going to get a final one at 4 weeks. Okay. But then she also gets the in-person stuff with me. So it's like the videos are to help educate you. And then I come into the picture and I go, where are the gaps? Like what wasn't connecting for you? Okay. And then I help you with that stuff in person. Okay. And that's something we added in because of COVID.
Right.
Because everything now is verbal instruction. Is that it's such a large amount of information. Like you're not going to learn and retain everything when you leave. You're going to forget stuff. You can always just turn around, find, Taco's video and rewatch whatever it is that you were missing. Okay. Okay. The obedience stuff and the reactivity stuff, I don't feel like there's gonna be any issues there. Okay. The separation anxiety may possibly go away simply through discipline. Okay. Okay. Now, because I know it was with the change and everything, in California, are you aware of whether or not there was any kind of separation anxiety there or no?
Only when we would move. So I moved to 2 apartments since I had him, and like it would just be acclimating to those new apartments. I would say probably for like the first couple of weeks, and then after that he would be fine. Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's pretty standard too. It usually takes dogs 2 to 4 weeks to settle into a new environment. So that makes sense. Is worst case scenario, is he free range or is he in the kennel when you're gone?
No, he's free range.
Free range. Worst case scenario would be a bark collar. Okay. And it corrects when you're not around. So what makes separation anxiety difficult, because again, we probably are not going to see it here. Okay. The only time we see separation anxiety is when it's an extreme case, which is fairly rare. Okay. But because since we're not his home and it's like boot camp, like he's not going to be anxious and needy. He'll be anxious because of new environment, but he won't be needy because he's not attached to us. Okay. Because that's where separation anxiety comes from. It's attachment. Okay. And not being able to be independent. So the theory would be we do all the structure, you get him back, he's disciplined, you have training, you have control, I work with you, and then I go, let's see how it works out. Because now, once we transfer everything to you, now that you'll be reinforcing discipline and consequence, it changes how he perceives things.
Okay.
Okay. But if it's been, you know, if like, and human consequence and dog consequence is different, because I'll tell people, like, owners will say, like, oh, I discipline my dog. I tell them no. I'm like, yeah, but dogs bite each other. They don't
Yeah.
tell each other no. They just bite each other. That's the
Right.
difference. Okay. Is that now that you would technically be biting them with the e-collar when needed, that separation anxiety might go away. Okay. If it doesn't, there are exercises that I can show you to address it, but most likely the easiest and the fastest thing for you would just be bark collar. Okay. Because it's, you put it on him, you leave, and he barks and it corrects him, and he goes, oh crap. Now when I bark, there's a correction or a negative now, right? Every case is different. I've had some extreme cases where they just need the bark collar. Like, they wear it, they're perfectly calm. You put it on them, they go in the kennel, they're calm. You put them in the kennel without the bark collar, and they're anxious for whatever reason. So the bark collar helps settle them. Okay. So then, but they're not barking. It's just the presence of it just keeps their anxiety down. Okay.
Right.
So it's kind of like veterinarians prescribe, you know, Prozac, triazidone, or fluoxetine for dogs for aggression and anxiety, but it doesn't work. But people still keep giving these pills to their dogs, hoping that, you know, it does. I'm like, if, you know, if the dog was biting people, I'll ask, like, because I get cases like that all the time. I'm like, is the dog on any medication? Like, yeah, I'm Prozac. For what? Biting people. Has it stopped biting people? No. Then why is the dog still on Prozac?
Yeah.
You know? So because the e-collar and the bark collar are physical, dogs will respond to it. Okay. It's just, what is he going to need? Some dogs, after a couple of months, you may find you remove it and he's fine. And then the structure of the walks and the stuff with the e-collar just keeps everything, keeps his levels down, his stress levels down, and keeps the concept of consequence just in his head. Okay. Which leads me to my next thing. The most common question that I get is, when does the e-collar go away? Okay. And in my book, it does not, because animals are opportunistic. So, do you drive?
No.
Have you driven?
Yeah.
You have? Have you ever driven on the expressway?
Not out here, but yeah.
In California?
I just don't have a car in Chicago. I left it in California. Yeah.
But you've driven on an expressway before. Did you go the speed limit?
No.
So neither do I, you know, so, you know, most people don't.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, because you can.
You get away with it, right? There's no cops. Now, if there's a squad car, or you notice a squad car, what are you going to do?
Slow down.
Right. Because now there's the threat of consequence.
Right.
So for dogs, it's the same thing. You know, I look at the e-collar, I tell people it's a cop on a collar. When you need it, you put it on the dog. So that just means on your walks. If he's a great dog inside the house, then you don't need it. It's just when you're on those walks.
Right.
Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that you're always using it, right? So cops are present, but it doesn't mean that they're always, you know, stopping everybody, right? But they're present, and their presence keeps things in check. So it's the same thing for the e-collar. Okay. So it's nothing to do with my skills as a trainer. It's nothing to do with, you know, whether or not the methods work. It's simply opportunistic behavior. And if you can get away with it, then why shouldn't he? Okay. Now, excuse me one moment. I had a client, my next client just changed something on me. I have to let my employee know. So, question so far.
I mean, does it sound like, based on like what I'm telling you, that the boarding would be kind of the best route for him, like as far as kind of correcting some of these things, or no?
Yeah. So you have two options. Okay. The board and train is one, because these are simple enough. Okay. Now, when I deal with behaviors, I typically recommend that people do it themselves. Okay. Because you learn more.
Sure.
Okay. So if you want to learn more and be a part of the process, then I always encourage, yes, it takes longer, but you do the training, right? Now, if the issue is um, um, time, because I get some cases where the separation anxiety, or like, Jesse, we got notices and we need this fixed right away.
Yeah.
Right. Then it's kind of like, all right, we'll take the dog. And then when we come back, just have a bark collar ready for him or whatever, because I've had people lose their apartments, whatever, because of too many complaints,
Right.
or have to, how do you say, put their dog into a boarding train or whatever right away, because it was like, we need this done. So it's really up to you. Okay. Because if you did work with us in person, it would be time.
Yeah.
What I would most likely do is say, go ahead and just get that bark collar, and let's not even gamble about, is he going to make progress with just formal training and stop that behavior? Because we don't know, right? It's all always play it by ear with these kinds of things. Fall is coming, or fall is here apparently. So that was so fast. We since COVID, we've been working outside at Oz Park because it's a busy environment. Typically there's a lot of people and dogs there. I'm not sure how it's going to be now with the weather changing. So that's why we liked working there, because with the home to home, I would see so many, I could see up to 8 people in a day. Is that because of COVID? If I meet someone and I'm in their home and stuff, and they happen to be, positive, and then I'm seeing 6 to 5 more people after them, I'm then exposing all these people, right? So working outside has allowed us to, train in social distance, where it's all verbal instruction. I don't touch taco. I coach you through it all, okay? And I only help in the exercises where it's either me and my employee will help. For like instance, if we're doing come when called, that's usually a 2-person exercise. So some of our clients don't have someone to help them. So we work with them, we'll be the extra hand they need. But then after that, we're not a part of it. They're training the dog on their own. Okay. So the pro of the board and train is we get what you would get done in 6 weeks in essentially 2 weeks. Okay. And the con of a board and train is you don't see the work, like we film, like I said, the sessions and stuff. But if something happens and we're not recording, then it's kind of like, I'll explain it to her. But, we also have the other videos, like I said, that, in your case, I do have stuff that I can send you that would be beneficial, like that will, I believe, really help you understand the concepts. Okay. If you do in person, the pro is you learn everything from ground zero. Okay. And in my book, that's always the best, because you're his primary handler. You're the one that's with him 24/7. And it's how he feels with you that really matters. Okay. So everything gets tied to you. The discipline is tied to you, all that stuff. Nothing is tied to us, which is a con of board and train, is the dog is trained, but they're trained with us. So then we have to transfer everything to you. So there's still work involved. It's just he already has the skills, and then you just have to practice it so that he learns the skills with you. Okay. The con of the in-person would be, one, weather. So like today, we're having people. We have my facility, which is a 13,000 square foot facility. So that's also an option now. And then it takes longer. Okay. So because it's usually one class a week for about an hour, and we slowly just kind of I teach you on how to teach Taco, but then you also have to work with him, right? So like if you work with him twice a week, like you'll make progress, but it's gonna be very slow progress.
Yeah.
Now the way I train is I simply tell it's as you go about your life. So it's like if you walk Taco 3 times a day, then those 3 times is when you would be training him.
Right.
Okay, so there will be a couple things that you will have to set aside time for, but it's not a lot. And I train for life. Okay, I think people look at obedience as just like tricks, sitting down and all that stuff. Or obedience is meant to be functional.
Right.
Heel is walk with me, if I take one step, he takes one step, I take 5 steps, he takes 5 steps. When I stop, he automatically sits. And I don't care what the environment is. I don't care if you're at PetSmart. I don't care if you're at busy, lake shore, like in there by the lakefront where all the bikers and stuff are. Is when you keep that word, he's on your hip. Okay. When I say come, I don't care if he's chasing squirrels or running around. He's going to get his butt over. If I tell him to lay down and don't move for 2 hours, he's not going to move for 2 hours. That's the level of obedience that we train for. Right. We don't do real simple, like, down and then it's a cute trick and then he gets up and he's free. It's like, no, lay down and don't move for the next 2 hours. Okay? Yeah. And that's what changes his psychology, is because it's very disciplined. Mm-hmm. And dogs thrive with structure and discipline, especially if you get an insecure dog, they want to know what to do. Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of like the first day at the job, it's like you don't know what you're supposed to do, so you're kind of nervous and anxious. But then after a couple of days or a couple of weeks, once you know your rhythm and what you're supposed to do and what's expected of you, you're fine. Yeah. Right. Same thing with dogs. Okay. Questions? And you said he's 26 pounds. Mm-hmm. So the e-collar that I would recommend for him runs about $237 with tax. It's meant for 35-pound dogs and under. I'm pretty sure that's for his temperament, that's all you're going to need. Typically, when I deal with reactivity cases, I'll suggest people opt for the higher powered collar. Mm-hmm. But judging where it's coming from and the experience that he had and stuff, I'm pretty sure the smaller collar is going to be just fine. Sure. It's a half-mile range, fully waterproof, both the transmitter and the receiver, so he can swim in it and you could swim in it and it's perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. They last a really long time. I've had mine going on 7-8 years, no issues. Mm-hmm. So it's an investment, but they last quite a while. Yeah. Every now and then, the most common thing that I see is the battery, because it is a rechargeable lithium battery, will give out. Okay, mm-hmm. So then you go to the website and you look up the battery for a specific models. They're like $15-$20. You order it, they send it to you, you replace it, you're back to working. Otherwise, if it's underneath or it's within the warranty time, then you can simply just send it to Dogtra and they'll repair it for you or replace it for you and send it back. Okay. In terms of length of time, I think you'd be fine either with the 2-week program or board and train, or the 6-week in-person program. Okay, and the in-person is like at Oz Park, which is not too far from where you're at in Lakeview. Mm-hmm. And then for whatever reason, if there was bad weather and stuff, we can work at my facility. We are starting in-home as well, where we're doing home-to-home, but it's just very limited. Okay, so having people come to me allows me to be able to see more people within a day, but then also we're able to like be outside and social distance and stuff. So with the in-home, it's very limited in terms of availability. It's most likely going to be more so during the day where I have the free time to go to people's homes and stuff like that. Yeah. Otherwise, we have to work out a time that would work for all of us. And it does come at a higher rate because now it's pulling me away from where I would typically operate now. Okay. And COVID's really kind of just throwing everything off. And I had just expanded to my facility, September of last year. Mm-hmm. So training wise, my business has been doing good. We were building our daycare base, and then right when COVID hit, like everything just reset, everything went to zero. And now it's like, just like working our way back up. And now in terms of services, because I used to be solely home to home, mm-hmm. Is now with COVID and all that, like, trying to see as many people within a day, it's really just kind of flipped everything over. So, yeah. Any questions or concerns?
So if we did the 6-week one, is it only based on like, is it every like Sunday or something, or how does that?
You would again contact with Maria. Okay. She would, you would say, hey Maria, like I'm interested in doing the in-person instead. Yeah. This is my availability. And then she'd look at your schedule, she'd look at my schedule. And if you're able to come to Oz Park, we have a bigger window, okay? Because that's where I operate from.
Yeah.
If it's either at Oz Park or at my facility, depending on, weather or whatever. If it's, I would like for Jesse to come to my home, we have to look at your availability and then look at my availability and then see where would I be able to go to you where it wouldn't like inhibit everything else, so that's the one thing that I've only done a couple of in-home, like single one-off in-home visits so far, but because they're just one-off, so that's easier as opposed to where I would be seeing you regularly, so that we would have to take a look at what your schedule looks like and what mine looks like, and then we would work around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just because I'm still very much so like Monday through Friday, like I don't know that that's gonna work. So I think that's why I was gearing a little bit more towards like the boarding.
Sure.
You just kind of like knock it out, and then I will definitely try my best to follow through with like the videos and whatnot.
Yeah, and then during that time, so like if possible, he'd be here for 1 week, and then you would have a visit here at the facility, and I would, so you'll have your video, right, as reference, and then I start working with you already in person. And then another week goes by, and the pickup session is typically 2 hours. Okay. Because we go over everything, application, all that stuff. And then, of course, you get your overview video as like supplementary. Then you take Taco. You can also just let him finish the program, watch your videos, take Taco, apply what you learned from the videos, and then you get hours of work is how I look at it. Okay. So it's I believe for the 2 week, I believe it's 6 hours of follow-up work, okay, with me that you get. So if you come, the 1 and 2 hours, that leaves you with 3 hours of follow-up after his program. Or he can complete it, you watch your videos and you go, okay, I'm going to just take what I've learned from these videos and apply it and see what happens, okay? Maybe everything is good, but maybe you're struggling with something reactivity-wise. Then you say, hey, I would like to schedule one of my follow-ups because I'm struggling with something that I'm not getting from the video. I show up and I help you, close that gap and teach you what you're missing, okay? So the board and train comes with, a couple of ways, like some flexibility in the sense of like how you want to approach it. I do encourage people just come along like once a week. That's like the pickup doesn't have to be 2 hours. It could be an hour as well. Just so that it's not just like a crash course into like here's everything Taco has learned.
Yeah.
But the videos that we've been doing just help add a little gray area in terms of how you want to, if your schedule is too busy or for whatever reason for a particular weekend, then it's not a big deal because you still are kind of keeping up with his learning process. Anything else?
No.
Yeah, for me, this is gonna be pretty simple. Okay. I don't have any real concerns here. So Maria will get in touch with you. She'll reiterate everything that I said. She'll give you the pricing for everything as well for your options. And then you just pick and choose how you want to move forward. And then she'll get you all scheduled. And then she'll send you a link to the make and model for the e-collar. And then we'll take it from there.
Okay. So then for the e-collar, I order it, or do you guys like already have them? I guess, how does that work?
You would order it. You can get them on Amazon.
Okay.
I used to sell them, but Amazon is undercutting everybody. So then I had like $5,000 worth of inventory that I couldn't sell. So once I started slowly selling it, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that again. So.
Okay. Sounds good.
Anything else?
No.
Did you happen to watch any of our videos, by the way?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it just helps, create, if there's any concern about like the methods and stuff. On my channel, if you've not seen, I have a playlist called Dog Training Highlights. And there are cases where I've kind of cut them and edited them, and I talk about the case. Yeah. To kind of educate people, and then I put in clips of like the footage. so you can see how e-collar works and all that stuff. And it's just to kind of just show people that what we do is effective,
Mhm.
and we're very transparent. And it shows that even if people do verbal instruction, that the methods are still, they work, because
Yeah.
people were concerned about, if you're not touching the dog, is it really going to work? So e-collar is what has allowed me to continue to train dogs to the same quality that we were before. So,
Okay.
okay. Well, if you need anything else, Sabrina, you let us know.
I appreciate
Otherwise,
it.
it was a pleasure. And then Maria will follow up with you, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.